So the reason why we're here, though, is to hear from Jonathan Stone and find out all the revitalization efforts that are taking place in downtown. And when you think about downtown, it goes well beyond just all the businesses that are located near the Arch Bridge. Downtown really stretches from the Legacy Project all the way up to the Cove. So when you think about the economic opportunities that can be created over time, with the synergy of having the Legacy Project getting off the ground very soon, and I'll be touching on that because that is our topic for next month, with the Cove Project under construction right now, and phase 2, from what I understand, will be starting fairly quickly, with the potential of the landfill being developed. The whole gateway of the northern part of downtown Oregon City is going to be totally transformed. And people will say, hey, have you been to Oregon City lately to see what's taking place? That is where it's happening. But Jonathan, you're the one that can share it the best, so I'm going to turn it all over to you. Jonathan Stone.
Yes. So what I thought I would do today, first I'll give you an update on some of the things that we're working on, but in kind of the spirit of the conversation about awards or excellence or something like that, is what are our peers doing, and are there any opportunities that we can learn from our peers, and are there ways that we can apply those learnings in Oregon City? So if you had the pleasure of listening to me 6 months ago, I guess that's about how long it was, I like you to do the work, not me do the work. So there may, if time allows, be a worksheet and a discussion. So this time I actually made a worksheet. So what I want to do is remind you who we are, the Downtown Oregon City Association. And for those of you who don't know, we are a independent 501c3 nonprofit corporation. We just grew to 3.5 full-time employees, or full-time equivalents. We welcomed Justine Ely at the beginning of October, and she's joining us through the University of Oregon's Rare AmeriCorps program. And so she moved from Austin, Texas to be of service to her country, but we get the benefit of her in Oregon City. And she has a degree in city planning and experience in housing and homelessness, which are topics that are sort of pertinent currently. And she'll be working on business recruitment, retention. She's going to be managing a couple projects I'll mention later. So we're really glad to have her join us. Then we are growing our board of directors from 11 to 13. Which is the maximum that our bylaws allows. And so we'll welcome Roger Nickerson and Carol Pauley back onto the board in a different capacity. We believe Nancy will be joining us on our board as the city liaison from the commission. So, and then Shelley Batty of the Bike Concierge and Craig Morrow of Oregon City Brewing Company are going to bring a different and new perspective to our board. So I just want to thank those that are here that are serving on our board. Thank you so much. Oh, so Brian, who else is here? And we have committee members. Oh, Amber Holvek, and we have other, I think about 4 or 5 committee members in the audience as well. So well represented, and I think we're always well represented at these meetings, even if I'm not able to attend. We recently grew our organizational structure. We added an executive committee, and then we also added a new committee called the Retail Marketing Committee. And the point being there that events sort of were taking over our promotions committee, and we wanted to give a different forum to discuss things like ringing registers specifically. And so that's what the new Retail Marketing Committee is going to be doing. And already they've approved 2 projects. One is that the Downtown Association will be joining Travel Portland on behalf of all of our downtown businesses. And then we will also be mailing another direct mailer, which, if you may have seen the summer visitor guide, maybe it will go to the printers this week, and that will go to 13,000 homes in Oregon City, as well as several other thousand printed for tourists and visitors that pick them up in our businesses. So our mission statement is entirely too wordy. I inherited it, so I'm not going to talk about that. Just a reminder, we have a brand statement. We went through a public visioning process 2.5 years ago, and really what this is think of it as what do we want to be in 5 years and how do we get there. And so we determined that small town is our thing, and we need to keep that. And then also kind of think about what it means to be a small town with respect to being the civic center of Oregon City. So small town to our visitors, small town experience to our residents. This slide's kind of old, but it gives you a general picture of our finances. So basically, our budget is approximately $270,000, and we're about 25%, give or take, on city contribution, economic improvement district contribution, grants, as well as other earned income through a variety of sources, basically beer sales. So that really helped us out in terms of being able to continue to sustain and stabilize our program into the future. So if you're not familiar with the Main Street organization, it's a national model, and it has 4 points which basically correspond with our committees. So we basically do anything and everything that is identified through our strategic process to move the needle to reestablish our historic business district as a vibrant place. Through our branding process, we identified transformative strategies, so remember these because we'll come back to them later. But we see these as sort of themes or that need to be pursued in order to meet what our brand vision is, but also that we think are the best ways to revitalize the district. And so that's tourism is super important, and we're really glad the city has started to take more action on that, and they're forming a tourism council. And so family-friendly civic heart of Oregon City, I'll go back to this one in a little bit. Destination retail and restaurant experience. We're already kind of getting there with restaurants, which is amazing. Retail needs a little bit of work. And then what can we do to enhance our small town charm? Mixed use, 18-hour live-work district. I think there's maybe 5 apartments in our district. I'm not sure how many of those are actually residences. And then public access to Willamette Falls. And so we originally called that integration with the mill site, but if we're thinking about it as a strategy, we then in that sense share the strategy with the mill site, and that whatever it takes, public access to Willamette Falls will be a great transformative effort. So back to the point about Civic Center. Our biggest challenge is also what differentiates us. And I don't know if you've been on Oregon City Chit Chat recently, but I believe there's approximately 500 comments on there on varying topics that have kind of exploded over the past week. And my takeaway from that is that downtown Oregon City is a destination even to the person who lives 3 houses over, because we don't have the pedestrian connectivity that other districts do. And then we're also miles away from the city center. So if we were to place downtown traditionally in what would be this center, geographic center of Oregon City, downtown would be a much more obvious choice for businesses and for people to participate in the Civic Center because they would be passing through it every day. But 213, then to some extent Washington Street and Malala just kind of, or even like South End Road, just kind of shuttle people past our downtown, and they don't have the occasion necessarily to come to it. So if you're a resident of Oregon City and you make the decision to come downtown, we have to meet them with a good experience, because then they might choose to go somewhere else. Versus if somebody is from outside Oregon City and they've heard all of the amazing things and have a different opinion maybe, if they drive 40 minutes to come visit us, they're going to find a parking place because they're invested now at this point to come downtown. So think of that. Our biggest challenge is also what differentiates us. We are almost as much West Lynn's downtown as we are Oregon City's downtown. And we don't want to lose the civic connection of our residents to the historic place of Oregon City. But if we aren't cognizant of that, it's potential that we can. So Main Street revitalization grants. Working through the state of Oregon, all Main Street districts have access to up to $100,000 per project. They have a $2.5 million pool. And so we've reached out to our property owners and to specific projects that we know are happening. And if there are others, please let me know. It's a December application, and the goal is much like Urban Renewal's goal, and we want to potentially leverage and work with Urban Renewal to get better and more and better projects, or projects sooner, than we otherwise would have with those $100,000 grants. So we will be working, and Justine especially, will be working on putting applications together over the next month and a half. Our summer events were record-setting, except for the car show. It rained, and I think the only people that showed up were driving cars. And then I also just want to mention, this is kind of bullet points sort of out of order, we have a downtown discussion this Thursday, which we do every fourth Thursday with the Neighborhood Economic Development Corporation, and they'll be presenting to anybody who shows up about the new services that they're expanding into Clackamas County. We'll be initiating an annual campaign. Last year we called it Friends of Downtown, but more traditional annual campaign to invite people to participate in the revitalization of downtown financially, and then of course through that hope that they also spend money at our downtown businesses. If they have a buy-in to their community, they might support those more. The Snowflake Raffle is kicking off in a week and a half, and that's our third annual event where we give away thousands of dollars. Last year, I think we had nearly 20,000 entries handed out, so I hope we get to beat that this year. And then with the city, where we applied for on behalf of the city to be awarded a $50,000 Travel Oregon grant, and that is going to be what we're calling, for lack of better words, because we're hiring the firm to come up with the better words, an experience-based tourism product. What that means is there's not a lot of capacity in Oregon City right now to manage tourism on a broad scale. And, but we do have some financial resources that we can put towards an experience-based product. Think Bend Ale Trail, think Freedom Trail. Trails are a thing, but maybe not a trail. But the idea being that we can manage somebody's expectations by coming to Oregon City for this experience, and then they're pleasantly surprised by everything else that is attached to it. I believe we have 8 or 9 new businesses that have opened up since we last talked. I had a separate slide for this, but then I took it out, so they should all be recognized, including Mesa Fresca. Downtown discussion again. What about that? Retail recruitment strategy, I'll talk about in a second. And then part of what I'm hoping to get away from this, is, if we have time for feedback, is that we're hosting the 2016 Main Street Conference for the state of Oregon next year. Oh, you're right, because it would have been last week had we had it this year. So the 2017 Annual Main Street Conference, and we really want to figure out ways to make that an asset for the community, for us to show off Oregon City, for businesses, for property owners, for citizens to learn not just about the Main Street model, but also how to get involved in downtown revitalization. So I wanted to call out specifically our retail cluster strategy, which is sort of a project that we are working on right now, and it dovetails with the recruitment guides that I've dropped on that Carol dropped on the different tables for you. And we've identified a number of target business types. That doesn't mean that these are the only business types, but what we've done is we've looked at a number of different lenses to understand what types of businesses might score highly or are of the greatest gap or need in downtown, or that benefit from existing businesses. For example, ice cream shop. It's family friendly, so that supports a growing demographic in adjacent neighborhoods. It supports the small town feel and the transformative strategy of being a family-friendly civic center, and we don't have one. So it scores pretty highly on a number of different things. And then we have a lot of resale and vintage, but we haven't yet broken into new products. And we have a couple of fantastic furniture stores, but you can barely find a lamp or a painting or whatever else it is that you might furnish your home with. And then, not listed there, but of course if tourism takes off, gifts and accessories would be an important one to introduce. So where are we at in the process? The first step was creating the recruitment guide that you see on the table. We've mailed them to all of our property owners, and if you didn't receive one, please let me know, because you should have. And Then our next step is to distribute to all of our retail brokers. So Graham, I'm glad you're getting a copy right now. And then to distribute to our existing retail businesses. What we found is that our retailers are our front line. And they frequently encounter somebody who's maybe wanting to open a business. This will help give them tools to say, connect with the right people. And then we can talk about business ideas, where it fits within our research, and then of course introduce them to brokers or real estate agents that are familiar with the downtown area. So next, and we're in process of developing a Salesforce database of compatible prospects, and we've budgeted to direct mail this guide along with a couple of postcards in a campaign. Probably going to wait till January because political season and Christmas season just doesn't seem like a good time to be sending retailers mail. And then a PR campaign to sort of introduce to the Portland area business press about the sort of ideas and welcoming businesses to Oregon City. The thinking is, if we can bring in a cohort of new businesses downtown, that we will strengthen our existing retail cluster much faster. And because right now it doesn't stand on its own with the exception of our restaurants and the existing clusters that are there. And if we can bring in a cohort, then we have something we can rally around and market to. So you're probably wondering why we had a bronze mouse up on the slide before. This is the part where I just want to share some utterly random ideas with you that are inspiring to me or have inspired me in the past. And some of them are examples from our own Main Street communities in Oregon, and some are examples from across the country. There's a purpose for them being up there, maybe, but really it's just to kind of spark some thinking about how we can use other ideas. So, this guy. Greenville, South Carolina. It's called Mice on Main, a high school student senior project. And what they did was he worked with an artist and raised all the money himself to install 9 mice throughout Greenville, South Carolina's downtown. And it's inspired by apparently his favorite childhood book, Good Night Moon. It is now number 3 of outdoor activities in Greenville on TripAdvisor, and it has a 5-star review. So this only cost a few $1,000s. It was a student's idea, and now there's this whole class of visitors that are coming down, and I was reading some of the comments. I took my kids to see this when they were little, and now they have kids that are little or something like that, and like it's a thing to do. But what's cool about it is that they're placed throughout downtown, and it causes people to move about the district and to experience different parts of the district that they may not otherwise venture to. And it gets them to linger longer. And it hits on our family-friendly aspect, public art, beautification, a lot of different things. So that's one idea. Yeah, we have a chapel downtown too. This particular one is a restaurant, but this project is called Francis Court, and it's the first new building in Dayton in over 50 years. Dayton has done some pretty interesting things, so if you haven't been there in a while, it's very tiny, but it's very interesting. They won this year at the Main Street Conference Outstanding New Building. But what I really like about this is it addresses a need for additional retail space in their downtown, as well as introducing a modest 2 residential units to the district. Same architect did this building as did the restoration of the building next door, and they now have a winery and a gift shop in their downtown next to a newly created public space. So this idea I thought was interesting. Astoria, Oregon, one of my favorite places in Oregon. They did, and this is sort of topical given the building we're standing in, they did what they called Shorestyle wedding fair, and they brought together their hotels, their event businesses, their photographers, the salons, everybody together to put on a wedding fair event that brought in people from all over Oregon as well as from a few other states. This solidified or strengthened the partnership of the Downtown Association in Astoria with their emerging tourism businesses, and I'm sure you guys are all well aware that Astoria is rocking at tourism. The Dalles. Their former Elks Lodge is much prettier than ours. It doesn't look like it right now, but what this is going to be the National Neon Sign Museum. Who would have thought? But at any rate, now this is an urban renewal example. That building was purchased by urban renewal and then sold back to, or was purchased from the Elks, I believe, and then sold to the organization that's developing the museum, giving them, reducing their burden in order to be able to invest into a national quality museum. Also in the Dalles, a couple of examples that I didn't bring pictures up for is that they've used a request for proposal process to solicit development to restore a historic theater, which the project is not yet underway, but has generated interest, as well as a housing project that they've used a proposal process for. I can't say that it's all gone perfectly well, but at the very least, it's brought those projects and the ideas of the city to the forefront to bring destination quality development to their downtown. And I was in La Grande this weekend, and I was driving back and stopped in the Dalles at their new brewery, Freebridge. If you haven't been there, it's in what was going to be a United States Mint that was supposed to be in the Dalles that never ever came to be. That was pretty interesting. So anyways, the Dalles Main Street and the City of the Dalles won Best Partnership for 2016. And examples are projects like this where everybody's sort of in together collaborating to create good work. Washington, Missouri. I've never been there, but I met their director. There's a few things that I like about this, and it's absolutely intriguing. Their downtown association formed Historic Washington Foundation, which essentially acts as a historic preservation and community development corporation. Their first project was this farmers market building, and then they worked together with the city and the Chamber of Commerce in sort of building out and raising funds for this project to create a new home for their farmers market under canopies around the sides and back of the building. The Historic Washington Foundation, or Downtown Washington Inc., now owns the farmers market building, an old post office, which they now operate. If we do that, that would mean my title would be postmaster too. I don't want that job, so don't get this as a real idea. And an old log cabin that they now operate as a bed and breakfast. So what is interesting about this example is they didn't want to be building owners, but they have leveraged their investments to continue to make improvements and generate income for their organization. And once they pay off their mortgages in 7 years, they will enjoy that income even greater in the future. But I was on the phone with Bridget Epple, their executive director, at 6 a.m. this morning, and she was explaining to me the Neighborhood Assistance Tax Credit Program in Missouri, which is absolutely fascinating. Anybody is a mover and shaker with the state, think about this idea. It provides up to 70% tax credit, a maximum of $350,000 per approved project. And $16 million of tax credits are available statewide. So an organization has to apply to the state program in 2 rounds, and then if awarded, they can then have donors donate to the project, immediately receive a tax credit from the state, and then claim the donation on their federal income tax, and sometimes actually make money in the process. So I think that probably happens more on the 70% side, and 70% is given to the most rural or most needed areas. But how cool is that as a nonprofit to be able to take a donation and your donor is actually walking away with more money than they started? So what's neat about that is it actually attracts the public in a participatory process to help finance projects that restore historic buildings and blighted communities. So that's a cool idea. I don't expect that to happen, but I like it nonetheless. So, City of Canby. This was just in the newspaper, I believe, but they're getting ready to break ground on a new mixed-use building in their downtown. And what's cool about this project is they did a request for expression of interest. So basically, Canby vacated their municipal buildings and moved into a gorgeous new municipal building a couple blocks away. And now they're actually attracting market rate housing into the downtown Canby area. If Canby can do it, so can we. And so the Hanlon development is leading that, and so I hope that the interest that's been generated here is something that we can ride the coattails on. Just because I was in LeGrand this weekend, it turned out it was the Eastern Oregon Film Festival, and what I liked about that was LeGrand has a film festival. But they are also restoring the historic Liberty Theater in their downtown. They still have one. And they also have a Granada Theater, which continues to show feature films. And so their urban renewal district has participated in the theater restoration, but also owns a fire station, which they are now leasing to a new fire-themed brewery. And they were also going to have an entrepreneurship center that's going to be operated in part by the city. The Urban Renewal District also owns the former Oddfellows building, which it is seeking proposals for redevelopment, and which may tie into its pending retail strategy that they are doing research on in the next few months. And then the Entrepreneurship Center, but in everything else, they've identified entrepreneurship in their urban renewal strategy. So in the planning document, it actually talks about helping business owners directly, which I thought was pretty cool. Waukegan, Illinois. I don't know if I've shared this example before, but this is the place that offered me a job, and then I turned it down and found this one. So, but in the spirit of collaborative things, they were managed to turn an old former 140-room hotel into 36 live-work loft units. And $14.6 million was raised. But the way they do this, it's owned by an organization called ArtSpace out of Minneapolis, and they've done this throughout the country. And they actually are technically considered low-income housing, or whatever the new term is these days. Affordable housing. Equitable housing, okay. But they're able to use artists as residents to qualify for that, and then what they get are 36 new artist residents in their downtown. And this has been replicated successfully across the country. Hillsborough. I just brought this up because I don't have anything pretty to show for the work that we're doing yet. But they are recently completed the shared parking study, and I've identified shared parking lots for nights and weekends parking. And this is something that the Downtown Association here is actively working on. Hopefully over the next few months, we'll start those conversations with those that own lots that are sort of pedestrian and public friendly. So on this worksheet that's going around, fill them out and discuss as a group at your table. So take 5 minutes to fill them out, take 5 minutes to discuss at the table, and then if we have time, we'll select one example from each table to share. And what I'm asking for isn't anything about Oregon City. It's to take ideas that have inspired you in your travels, and then what we're going to do is tie them back to a transformative strategy, if there's any link. And so what the worksheet says, does this idea support a transformative strategy, and what do you think Oregon City can learn from this idea? And so examples that I'm thinking about are like, oh, I was in that place and I saw little mice on the street and there were children running around looking for them. Or I read about this thing in the newspaper about some cool building or business or project or something, that kind of thing.
Hey, so one of the ideas that our table came up with was something that I saw while I was in Boston, is the duck boat tours. We've got a great river right out here. We could have people get picked up in downtown and be shown all the really cool historical sites and some of the things from the woolen mill to the paper mill, and all the other types of things that had gone on in Oregon City throughout the years, the interpretive center, the museum up top, and then actually be able to go down onto the water and show them the falls and talk about some of the things from the tribal Indians and how they fished and how pioneers fished and just the abundance of that sort of stuff. So that was one of our deals. And there's plenty of eel to go around. Absolutely.
I still think the Museum of the Oregon Territory needs a lamprey tank. So, not pretty, but it's true.
Well, we also, John, felt that the river was very important as part of an attraction that makes Oregon City unique, and the fact that we have several locations from downtown, for example, underneath the courthouse, that could go ahead and be further enhanced and developed so that you'd have better access to get down to the river, whether it's for kayaking or whether it's, I think the Portland Spirit just came up last week and had an amazing interpretive presentation by Jerry Herman and others on his team. But the one idea that we thought, and we were kind of went back to what Epcot does over in Orlando, if people that came to Oregon City would go to the Chamber of Commerce or to a tourism location and be able to pick up a little passport book. And within that passport book would have a history of Oregon City, pictures of some of the older homes, some of the major landmarks. But throughout Oregon City, there already are landmarks in the sidewalks, different acknowledgement plates as to when a building was constructed. But if you got more stamps in your passport by going to different historical locations throughout downtown, you would earn more points that you could redeem then at some of our newer restaurants. So there was an incentive for them to actually go to more locations. The more things you saw, the more you earned. So kind of do. We'll find an IT guy for that.
Well, 2 points to that. One is we're experimenting with Scavenger Hunts on our Fourth Fridays, which then allow people a chance to win something. But also the $100,000 Travel Oregon grant project could potentially build something like that. But we're not telling them what to think until they come up with the best ideas, and then we go from there. But something along those lines, an experience-based thing, hopefully be created by the end of next summer.
We had a lot of ideas floating around this table, so they're going to chime right in. I think one of the most exciting one was utilizing the Liberty Plaza, in Oregon City, and then for a music venue or some kind of performing arts venue. We talked about rebuilding the Liberty Theater and coming up with just another activity to do in Oregon City. Movies outdoors at the Liberty Plaza, just up on the wall during spring, summer, fall. What else? Concerts at the falls. You're the one that brought that up. What do you want to say about that?
If we could build on some of the designs and the ideas for the Legacy project, one citizen had mentioned to me, wouldn't it be great if we could have a concert venue down there where we could have major rock concerts? And I'm thinking of George Washington out in the middle of nowhere is able to attract tens, hundreds of thousands of people to their concerts. Why couldn't we have concerts at the falls? I mean, big concerts at the falls, and that way people wouldn't be there all the time, but just whenever we had concerts.
We had a bunch of ideas. One was kicking the people out of the courthouse. Maybe a better idea. One of the things that I don't know if anyone's ever been to downtown Seattle. I think it's the Pioneer Square is the area, but they have a no. But specifically, this square has there's when I was younger, you go and you pay one price. It's your door fee, and you could go into. There were 4 to 6 bars, and you could go in and listen to a different band. So everybody would go downtown. I think they still do it, and you would deliberately go hit everything to kind of see all the music that was going on. So we had talked about maybe doing that, even if it was an acoustic thing, just to get people to want to come down and hit all the different bars late at night and drive home safely.
Yes. I do believe downtown Seattle's website, one of the most prominent buttons is "Where's Happy Hour?" We don't have that button on our website, but collaboration amongst restaurants is a super cool idea. If you guys don't know, we have the Brews and Broomsticks pub crawl this weekend, which many of downtown's bars and restaurants are participating, and we'll have pedicabs sort of going back and forth. So that's a fun way to collaborate, but definitely ways to build on entertainment, and eating and dining is enhancing that cluster. Alice.
I don't believe I was the spokesperson.
You travel enough. You're always the spokesperson.
Yeah, I don't know how I got roped into this. We were so creative that we didn't, just stop with one idea either, much like this table. First, we talked about a bunch of stuff. Geocaching, again, continuing that. It is such an international phenomenon. We talked a lot about art, and particularly having a photo op place, where someone sits with their arm out and people can snuggle up, kind of like the Vera Katz statue down on in Portland. We talked about a symbol for Oregon City, well, like the cows in Portland quite a few years ago, where something that represents us comes to the community, maybe done by artists. I've seen this all over the world too. Sometimes they become permanent fixtures in the community, but they also can be sold as a fundraiser. Rooftop gardens, so you can look down the elevator and you have rooftop gardens, but also one thing we talked about, there really is no very little green space in downtown. There's no softness of that, so we kind of identified some secret places where green space could be built, but if we had rooftop gardens, that would also extend the visitor experience. What else was that? Oh, and then Gresham, I believe, also had some really, at least when I was mayor, maybe they abandoned it, but they had really interesting live workspace with the retail below and the housing above, which is another place to go look at. It was actually, they built it around their civic center a few years ago.
So just to inject a specific example of the Cows on Parade idea, Rhode Island is the home to Hasbro, which they're the ones that make a Mr. Potato Head. And so in Rhode Island, they actually had Mr. Potato Heads throughout the state. And so, and then in terms of live-work example, the Bush family is very interested in developing their back warehouse building into, I think it's 5 or 6 live-work units. And so that's one of the projects we're hoping to help move forward very soon. Last example? Did I get it? I think you guys can provide a real example here shortly.
A real example. Well, we've had a lot of similar ideas. We're going last here, so people have already talked about the art connection. One of our guys talked about the fact that over in Joseph, the Foundry where they do bronze statues is sort of served as a way of pulling the community together around it, and so maybe some simple idea like that might be a catalyst to help build an arts community and an arts kind of a scene here. We commented about the fact that Oregon City is right at the southern edge of the Portland metro area, at the northern edge of the Willamette Valley, which is a huge breadbasket and a source of wonderful produce and foods and vegetables and wines and cheeses and that sort of thing, and how the restaurant scene seems to have sort of clicked here. Maybe we can piggyback on that and really focus on getting a food cluster here and putting Oregon City on the map as the place to go to get the cool artisanal sort of foods and that sort of thing. And then just a general comment. I think we're focusing on the whole 18-hour vibrant urban, kind of a developing a sense of community and a sense of place. And really, it seems that the key element to that is have people living within a short distance of downtown. And with what's going on at the Cove, you know, we're going to have 244 apartments there pretty soon. There may be quite a few more residences over there. But what are the other opportunities that are within a 5, 10, 15-minute walking distance of downtown that we can encourage, you know, the kind of mixed use, you know, higher density residential development that will provide the body heat to really enliven the community and help the businesses that come here succeed and create that vibrant urban kind of walkable feel. So.
Thank you. I'll back that up with 2 examples from outside Oregon City. A really interesting read is a book called The Town That Food Saved. It's about Hardwick, Vermont, and the sort of Northeast Kingdom. And so they have value-added agriculture, cheeses. I believe they turn whey protein from the milk industry into finishes for like hardwoods and stuff. And there's a number of different examples that food essentially is at the center of their economy and their manufacturing economy. And then the other example, you said, oh gosh, it'll come to me. But anyways, I left out this table, so I was moving around randomly, and so.
Rather than, we had a list of ideas too, rather than repeat some of them that were here, we had a couple fresh ones and one that kind of looks internally. One was to, you know, once we get the courthouse vacated, then we've got some large enough floor plates there to maybe look at moving the museums into downtown. And that would be quite a draw off the freeways to bring those people in. Of course, when all those people come in, we need parking and some sort of effort to help create parking or transportation so that the people then once we attract them into downtown, they don't leave from frustration from not being able to stop their car. You know, we've seen the benefit of the investment in downtown and the buildings. And the how it's cleaned up downtown, created a pride, attracted more people, brought more businesses in. We have a very unfriendly urban renewal program that doesn't support the business cycle, and it doesn't support the current state of the construction industry. And so that urban renewal program and how the use of those funds are analyzed and distributed, that we need to take another look at that and just.
Example of that? Like what are you talking?
Well, it's there are a couple issues. One is the timing that grants are accepted for review twice a year. Well, if you've got a building that you've got a tenant that wants to come in, we had a perfect example of that in our building. We had a destination tenant that wanted to come in, and they were ready and needed to go, and the timing was right, and so we could either say no, come back in 6 months after we've gotten our 3 bids, which is one of the requirements from contractors, and anybody that's in the contracting business right now knows it's hard to find a contractor at all, much less 3 of them willing to do some work. And so there's the 2 issues. There's the timing of when you can submit proposals, and there's the 3 bid requirement that both are inhibiting the use of that program right now. Those are things that I think would be very easy to do internally, that could really impact downtown and in a positive way, and things that are already in place that just need to be fine-tuned to take advantage of current conditions. And I think the sooner that happens, the faster we'll see the transformation continue.
I just want to bring about the retail recruitment program, and it really, the reason I want you guys to know about it is because it's going to take a village of sorts to kind of bring up entrepreneurs from within, grow entrepreneurs in our city, but also to recruit new businesses to it. And what we don't want are these timing issues when a space becomes available and maybe there's not where rents aren't really yet able to support maybe some of the improvements that need to be taken into account. But if we can create a wait list of people that want to come to Oregon City, then we're in a much better place to think about sort of how we can even manage timing if timing is still something that is of consideration. So that's our goal, is to create a wait list. Lots of towns have wait lists. If space comes up, somebody else moves in, and we just haven't kind of gotten over that hump yet for our retail, and so that's why we're pushing hard on this. So are there any questions about my presentation, examples I provided? Because I believe we have one more presentation, right? So, okay. Well, we can talk offline if there are. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Jonathan. We really appreciate your PowerPoint being able to show so many other examples across the country where they've gone ahead and experimented and had some real successes in going ahead and drawing more people into their downtown to create vibrancy, energy, and I think, Lloyd, you were making the comment, an 18-hour environment of live, work, play, rather than rolling up the sidewalks at 5 o'clock and everybody goes home. But we do have another, excuse me.
Kudos to Willamette Falls, so this PowerPoint will be available on our website soon.
Yeah, actually, all of our presentation forums are being televised now, and so they appear on the Willamette Falls Media Center website. You can download it from there. They send it to us also, so we can provide you a link from our website to go ahead and watch it, or send it to somebody else. But kind of along the lines, Jonathan, that you've been sharing, we have some exciting news that we'd like to announce, and so if Mr. Fowler would like to come forward, I will give you the microphone.
Do you want to unwrap that? Well, this is a fitting day to make this announcement, and I would like to say that we've been working on a project in downtown for quite some time, and it's involved on Washington Street. We still will be submitting this to the city, but we have official approval from Hilton to build a 99-room Hampton Inn and Suites in downtown Oregon City. For those of you that are familiar, this will be owned and managed by Hackett Hospitality Group. For those of you that are familiar with Washington Street and Abernathy Road and 17th Street, where the railroad depot used to sit in that field behind the Hackett House, that is where the location of this hotel will be. It'll be part of an overall master plan that we'll be submitting to the city before the end of the year. And that master plan will involve other developments we can't really talk about yet. So, but we're really excited. The owners of the hotel are really excited. We see some great synergy between the Abernathy Center and the hotel. This will allow us to do a lot more in terms of corporate events. It's one of the biggest stumbling blocks that we have in bringing in midweek events is where's the rooms? And we do have a hotel in town. We're not putting that down at all, but I think competition will be good. And this is just the beginning, folks. I predict within 5 years we'll see 5 hotels in Oregon City. I really do. I think we are on the cutting edge. And but we're pretty excited about it. It'll make the wedding industry stronger. It'll make the corporate industry stronger. It'll make our community stronger. So just wanted to bring it forth today. Thanks. Yeah.
I know I've said this before, but I got to say it again. Activity breeds activity. And I can't agree with Dan more than what he said on the ripple effect. Seeing all those piles of concrete where the cove is going now, anybody who drives 205 has got to be saying, that's got to be a humongous project to be able to be creating that many piles of concrete chunks. But that gets people asking, what's that all about? I want to inquire in Oregon City to see what's this massive development. Well, here you go. You're going to be the neighbor. Blaine, you're going to be opening the depot fairly soon, which will be a real catalyst for bike riders and other people that will be frequenting that region. If the landfill, very close to both of those developments, starts soon, boy, you know, we hit it out of the ballpark. It's a grand slam. Speaking of that, the World Series starts tonight, so grand slam. So I'm just really excited for Oregon City that we're going to have something that we can really tout about, because a lot of people talk, but we're actually talking and walking. So Jonathan, again, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it. I know you're working hard, and hopefully you'll be able to repeat next year as Downtown Manager of the Year for Main Street. That would be quite a feather in Oregon City's cap. So with that, we are adjourned, and we will look forward to seeing you in the month of November for the Legacy Project update.